Hey everyone, Sean Carlson here. Welcome to my home studio, coming at you again with another painting. He-Man, a character I have always loved since my childhood. Okay, I gotta be honest, He-Man was a little bit before my time. Grew up in the 90s, He-Man was a little bit more the 80s, but I always remember watching, there was a reboot in like the early 2000s that was pretty cool, that I remember watching and liking, and no one ever really talks about it. But anyway, with the new He-Man show, Masters of the Universe Revelations, that has now came and went on Netflix, I thought it would be a good idea to do a He-Man painting of my own. As a fan of the classic, hero-villain matchups, I always thought that the visual pair of He-Man and Skeletor back-to-back was always very cool. The Skeletor especially, the design of him, purple hood, the glowing green skull, always played off really well against the, just brolic flesh tone of He-Man here. So I'm going to take you the entire process, beginning to end, of how I created this piece. Before we get to that, make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and let's get to work. Starting in with some epic music here. Okay, so as always, the drawing comes first. You'll actually see pop up a few times. I have another smaller drawing. Yeah, there it is on the corner of the desk. I have another smaller drawing that I use as reference. That's actually my digital preliminary line drawing, which I print out a bunch of copies of and then shade in pencil. With all the different copies, I can experiment and try various lighting setups, which sort of act as planning or like a practice run for how the figure shading will eventually look. Alright, so drawing's all done. Got basic lights and darks sort of laid in there, a little bit of a plan or a roadmap for where I'm going to be putting my values. Next up is going to be the painting. I'm going to be giving sort of an overall tone to the whole piece, warm colors for He-Man primarily, and then cool in the reflection of his sword for Skeletor, and then mainly working from the background, Eternia, all the landscape and all of that, into the foreground, doing He-Man last. So let's keep it going. Definitely one of the parts I had the most fun with. The landscape of Eternia has such an inventive, classic fantasy look. The purple mountains and night sky with those big looming planets and crazy colors. It's so cool. And how can you not love the design of Castle Grayskull? I mean, the open mouth as the drawbridge is such an excellent idea. I also snuck in a little tiny Snake Mountain in the background on the right for people to spot. Taking a moment to lay down some bright flesh tone underpainting on He-Man here before going into the hardest part of the painting, which is the portrait. As many fantasy and comic book artists will tell you, hands and faces are by far the hardest things to draw, and in this discipline, they're the two things you end up drawing the most. So I always try and tackle the hard stuff as early as possible when I have the most creative energy and excitement for the piece. I tried something on this painting that I had actually never done before, which was the lighting. I went with this sort of side backlighting on him, which gives this glowing aura highlight around his outermost edges while leaving the core of the figure in shadow. It's a thing you see a lot on action movie posters, especially when the movie is sort of this like lone, dark and brooding hero, because of the sense of drama that it conveys. By far the biggest area of the piece to tackle, the body. In surface area, this section is literally half the painting, and that was of course done intentionally, because, come on, it's He-Man. I wanted to give the impression that his width was so huge it just went on forever beyond the picture plane. As the character is the true idealized form of just pure muscle, the main reference I used for him was the greatest bodybuilder of all time, Ronnie the King Coleman. For those who don't know, Ronnie Coleman is, I believe, tied in first place for the most Mr. Olympia wins, and is regarded, with some discussion as the greatest bodybuilder who's ever lived. Looking at a lot of pictures of him doing the inner double bicep flex gave me all the info I needed for the cuts and striations in the pecs, the curves of the biceps and forearms, and the vascularity throughout the figure. I also went a little smaller than usual on the chest plate here to further just sell the massive size of the character. Hair is one of my least favorite things to paint, and maybe that shows because it's an area that I think I need a lot more practice on. I think I did a fair job here on this piece, but shading and texturing hair is just something that doesn't really come natural to me, and was especially difficult here with his, platinum blonde Dutch boy haircut. However, I was able to go from that right into my absolute favorite part of the piece, which was Skeletor. Skulls are always fun to do, especially when they're funky colors, and it was a blast going into those little bone texture details, the reflected highlights on his jaw, and the big evil shadow that his hood just throws over everything. It killed me just a little to cover up some of the painting with the steel gray of the sword and those highlights on the left and right, but without that it would look artificial and too clear, and you wouldn't read it as a reflection in a sword. Alright, so here we are towards the end of the He-Man piece here. I just took a look at it inversed, sort of a mirrored version of it, so that way I can see it with fresh eyes. And notice that the right side here is a little bit empty compared to the left. The whole piece feels a little bit heavy on the left side and light on the right. So I'm going to add in one more little detail to make it a little bit more balanced. And once that element's done, we'll be finished. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is beginning to end, soup to nuts, how I created this painting. If you enjoyed the video and or the artwork, make sure to leave a comment, like, share, subscribe to the channel. All that good stuff really helps out the algorithm and puts my content out there. And also, if you like the artwork, you can get prints. There's a link to my Etsy shop down in the description. So hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.